Right. So welcome everybody to Inspired by Burns again, presented by the Fairview Town Crier and Tom Milroy. I'm Clark Aycock, the managing editor of the Fairview Town Crier, and I'll be your host tonight. First off, I want to thank Andrew for playing us in earlier. And if you got here early enough to see the slideshow, then those photos were provided to us by Dana Irwin, who lives here in Fairview. So a lot of great photos from her too. We thank you all for being here with us tonight and hope you enjoy the show. For those of you who don't know, the Fairview Town Crier is a nonprofit community newspaper located in Fairview, North Carolina, just east of Asheville. You should be able to find a link to our website and social media channels in the chat room, which I think Jed is going to drop in there in any moment. So you can stay in touch with us that way. Before we get started, we want to acknowledge that we are holding this event on the date when we celebrate the life of Martin Luther King Jr. And for a brief word on that, I'm going to turn you over to Hugh Farrell, who is staying up very late tonight in Scotland. I'll let Hugh introduce himself.
Hi there, folks. Yeah, Hugh Farrell here from Scotland. In fact, not only Scotland, I'm just a few paces from Burns's cottage. But I was asked to talk on the three wise men, Robert Burns, Abraham Lincoln, and Martin Luther King Jr. And they're inextricably linked, although they were born in different centuries. Of course, Burns came first, great humanitarian. Abraham Lincoln, lover of Burns, and also a great humanitarian. And Abraham Lincoln started a job that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to finish. And in that wonderful speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, I have a dream. And what a fantastic dream it was. We're perhaps getting there, but we're just short of Burns when he pleaded that man to man, the world o'er, should brothers be for all that. So I think the three wise men would perhaps be better entitled the three great humanitarians.
Thank you, Hugh. Appreciate that. And now Andrew is going to play for us, and I'll let him do a little quick introduction of himself and of this thing he's going to perform.
Thank you, Clark, and thank you, Hugh. Thank you for the honor of being able to participate tonight. I'm a longtime Burns fan. Tom Milroy brought me into the Burns fold, and I've enjoyed it ever since. I'm here in Durham, North Carolina, and I look forward to this whole evening together with you. As Hugh said, Burns was a man of his time, a man of the Scottish Enlightenment. His poetry and his music captured the essence of Scottish Enlightenment philosophy. The idea that our morality is based on our capacity to imagine ourselves in another situation from the perspective of that other person. The Scottish philosopher David Hume called this fellow feeling. He defined this as the conversion of an idea into an impression by force of imagination. And Burns certainly had that imagination. In this song that I'm about to play and sing, The Slave's Lament, Burns did not write about slavery, but rather wrote as a slave himself. In it, the slave contrasts the sweet home of Senegal with a life of enslavement in cold, cruel Virginia. It's a cold house. One moment. It was in sweet Senegal that my foes did me enthrall. For the lands of Virginia, oh, torn from that lovely shore, and must never see it more. And alas, I am weary, weary, oh, torn from that lovely shore, and must never see it more. And alas, I am weary, weary, oh. All on that charming coast is no bitter snow or frost, like the lands of Virginia, oh. Their streams forever flow, and their flowers forever blow. And alas, I am weary, weary, oh. The burden I must bear, while the cruel scourge I bear, in the lands of Virginia, oh. And I think on friends most dear, with a bitter, bitter tear. And alas, I am weary, weary, oh. And I think on friends most dear, with a bitter, bitter tear. And alas, I am weary, weary, oh. Torn from that lovely shore, and must never see it more. And alas, I am weary, weary, oh. Thank you.
Woo! Yeah! Brilliant.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great. Appreciate it.
And thanks, Andrew, for getting us started. My name is David Hamilton, and I grew up in Fairview and live here now. I'm going to be singing a version of Robert Burns' poem, My Heart is in the Highlands. And I just have been thinking about my ancestor, my Hamilton ancestors who lived in Scotland, and one of them, whose name was David Hamilton, showed up in England in the 1700s, and he was a laborer. And I wonder, why he had to leave Scotland. And I think about all the people who were displaced from Scotland and who longed for that place that they loved so much and their ancestors had cared for how many years, I don't know. Just connecting this with Fairview, these Highlands here, a lot of native people were displaced here when settlers came from Europe, and I know that a lot of them really missed this place too. So I'm just sending this out for all of those displaced peoples and who are longing to return home. Okay. My heart's in the Highlands, My heart is not here, my heart's in the Highlands, a-chasing the deer, a-chasing the wild deer and a-following the roe. My heart's in the Highlands, where'er I may go. Farewell to the Highlands, farewell to the North, the birthplace of valor, the country of worth. Where'er I may wander and where'er I may rove, the hills of the Highlands fore'er I will love. Farewell to the mountains high covered with snow, farewell to the straths and green valleys below. Farewell to the forests and the wild hanging woods, farewell to the torrents and loud pouring floods. My heart's in the Highlands, my heart is not here. My heart's in the Highlands, a-chasing the deer. A-chasing the wild deer and a-following the roe. My heart's in the Highlands, where'er I may go.
So wonderful.
That was great, David. Thank you so much. We're glad to have so many Fairview people performing with us tonight. That's a really great start. And before we move on to the next, I just wanted to say that our theme tonight was landscapes. I think that's a great song to illustrate that because we love it here in the Highlands. You know, the landscape was very important for Burns in his life and his work, and it's very important for people here in Fairview as well. I've had many people tell me they love driving back to Fairview from Asheville when they see the mountains. They know they're almost home. So you'll note that theme running throughout all the different performances tonight. So next we're going to move on to Tom Milroy with a poem.
Hello all. It's so great to actually see people there. Last time we were performing out into the wide blue yonder without knowing if anybody was there. So welcome everybody. I'm standing in front of the same clock that I stood in front of last time. The clock that ticked when Robert Burns was alive. Sadly, at the beginning of this month, maybe on January the 6th, the clock stopped working so well that it goes for 20 minutes or an hour, and then it stops. So although you can hear it ticking now, maybe, and it is still going, it's 7:24, it may stop during this performance. So don't take that as a huge disaster, but it is a sad thing, and I'll be working on it in the coming weeks. I'd like to pick up on what David was saying about people's hearts being back in the Highlands. And for those of us who are in Fairview, and we can buy for $3 at Trout Lily a beautiful little fridge fridge magnet of a lovely drawing of Fairview. And if we can imagine some of those Highlanders making their way down from Virginia, exhausted, looking for places to live and settle. They go over Mine Hole Gap, they've had a long day. They walk down, they're getting near Will Hamilton's house. They see a whole swampy area ahead. They've been following Cherokee trails for some of the way, and they're trying to figure out where the Cherokee would have got around this swamp. And then one of them said, "Oh, hi, it's a bonny view." And another one said, "Hi, it's a fair view." That second gentleman was a poet, because the word fair is a word that is often used in poetry. Fair is a word that is a poet's friend. And the reason is, fair rhymes with so many other words that if you use the word fair once,
you're in pretty good shape for the rest of the poem. So you've like got air, bear, bear the animal, care, dare, and so it goes on. Fair, all the different versions of fair, F-A-R-E, F-A-I-R, hair, here, hair the animal. I'm not going to go through the whole alphabet, but there are lots and lots of words that rhyme with fair. And you might even have noticed on tonight's program, or although some of you have yet to hear the last program that we had, but Bobbie Pell sang so beautifully, "My love is like a red, red rose." And one of the verses in that is, "So fair thou art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry." So I listed up way above here some of the meanings of fair: beautiful, pretty, lovely, attractive, gorgeous, stunning, captivating, luscious, ravishing. So it's a pretty rich word, and that's not taking into account the word fair that many of us were brought up with, because we weren't surrounded by poets. And the fair that rings in my ears from my childhood is the sibling voice of, "That's not fair." So that's another meaning of fair that comes across. The poem that I'm going to recite is the poem Upon Westminster Bridge, and it's written by William Wordsworth. And he was totally inspired by Burns. And just after Burns died, he even went up to Dumfries, the place where Burns was living just before he died, to visit with Burns's sons. He was similar to Burns in some ways, but in other ways he was very different. Picking up on what Hugh said, you probably wouldn't term Wordsworth a humanitarian. He was more of a romantic. And I think he took on most of the landscape poems that were written by Burns have a humanitarian little touch to them, but Wordsworth's do not have that. And the scene that this poem that I'm going to recite describes is one where Burns would probably have put in something about inequality or oppression. So I'm going to now recite a poem by William Wordsworth, Upon Westminster Bridge. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor, valley, rock, or hill. Near saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still.
Woo! Fantastic.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Good job. What laureate of Fairview?
Okay, thanks a lot, Tom, for that. We appreciate it. Next up, Bobbie is going to perform for us, but we're going to have an introduction of her choice from Hugh Farrell.
Hi, folks. This song, A Rosebud by My Early Walk, is one of my favourite Burns songs. Robert Burns rode into Edinburgh on the 29th of November, 1786, on a borrowed pony. Within a fortnight, he was having his portrait painted, and within 3 months, he was toasted as Scotland's national bard. But he didn't have any money. And in 1787, he was given the use of 2 rooms in William Cruikshank's house. William Cruikshank was a classic master in the High School of Edinburgh. He had a daughter who was very talented pianist and a beautiful singer. She was 12 years of age. Robert Burns was enthralled. She would sit at the piano and accompany herself singing songs that Burns had written. And Robert Burns wrote the song that Bobbie's going to sing for that little girl. And it's beautiful sentiments of the parents looking after the child in her early years. And then in their latter years, the child is blessing them. A Rosebud by my early walk from Bobbie.
Thank you so much, Hugh. I am Bobbie Pell. My maiden name is Moffat, so I am Scottish by heritage as well, and I am a storyteller and singer who loves Celtic folk and fairy tales. But I also love the affinity that the ancient Celts and modern have with nature. And so with that lovely introduction by Hugh, I will say no more, except to introduce the instrument I'll be playing. This is a bowed psaltery, a rosebud by my early walk. A rosebud by my early walk along the corn and closet bank, say gently bent its thorny stalk on a dewy morning. There twice the shades of dawn are fled, in all its crimson glory spread, and drooping rich the dewy head, it sends the early morning. Within the bush her covert nest, a little linnet fondly pressed. The dew set chilly on her breast, say early in the morning. She soon shall see her tender brood, the pride, the pleasure of the wood. Among the fresh green leaves bedewed, they wake the early morning. So thou, dipper, young Jeannie fair, on trembling string and vocal air, shall sweetly pay the tender care that tends thy early morning. So thou, sweet rosebud, young and gay, shall beauteous blaze upon the day, and bless the parents' evening ray, that watch the early morning. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Bobbie. Great as always. We appreciate it. We're going to go back to Andrew, but before you start, Andrew, We had one of the participants, Patrick, ask what instrument you were playing for the Slaves' Lament.
So I was playing the clarinet for the Slaves' Lament, and I'll just a little bit more information. So that was a regular clarinet. At the beginning, when we were before the introduction, I was playing something called a shovel pipe. That's a quiet indoor bagpipe that has fingering like the Highland pipes, but the three drones are all folded into that little cylinder. So it's a nice quiet instrument that can be played with other instruments. Thank you for asking, Patrick. You know, a year ago, my wife Peg is sitting here with me. A year ago, our house was full when we had our Burns supper. Some of the folks on the Zoom, I can see. It's wonderful to see Steve and Denise. It's wonderful to see Mike, Sally, Sprague and Debbie, all of our Durham friends. That was our last big bash before the curtain fell this year. And Clark and Fairview, thank you for allowing us to continue this tradition, even in this difficult year. And we look forward to when we all meet together and I can come up to Fairview and play the pipes with you. This next tune is one called the Lee Rigg. It's one we do every year at our Burns suppers. And it fits right into the theme of landscape. Burns often married his passion for the land with his passion for the lassies. In the Lee Rigg, a young man sings his love in all of the natural places he inhabits. The plowed fields with the oxen by the stream in the glen. And he sings his plans for a rendezvous on the ridge of the Lee, on the ridge of the pasture. I'll start on the tin whistle and then sing this lovely poem. When o'er the hill the eastern star tells Buchten time is near, my Jo and Ausen frey, the furrowed field returns say down and weary, down by the burn where birkin buds with dew are hanging clear, my Jo. I'll meet thee on the Lee Rigg, my kind dearie-o. At midnight hour in Mercus Glen, I drove and ne'er beery-o. If fro that glen I gave to thee, my kind dearie-o, although the night were ne'er sae wild, and I were ne'er sae weary-o, I'll meet thee on the Lee Rigg, my kind dearie-o. The hunter loves the morning sun to rouse the mountain deer, my Jo. At noon the fisher seeks the glen Down the burn to steer my Joe. Give me the heart of gloom and grey. It makes my heart say cheerio to meet ye on the lea. My kind dearie-o.
Great job, Andrew. Wow.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And we do hope we can all be together next year to do this instead of over Zoom. Thank you. So we go from Fairview now to Scotland and Jed and Jo.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Hello from Edinburgh, Scotland. It's really nice to see you all. Lily, that was beautiful. This is great. This is really good fun. My name's Jo. This is Jed, my husband, who is Tom Milroy's third cousin 4 times removed.
Or something like that. Some kind of.
Approximately.
We're very closely related spiritually, but don't know about. Anyway,
we're going to play some fiddle tunes for you, a duo. We'll start with the theme of the night, which seems to be the Banks and Braes, and then we'll go into a tune called The Hills of Glenorchy. But we have a little surprise. This is a joiner inner. This is a joiner inner, and Jed Milroy is going to call a little dance for you guys to.
it's an option. It's an optional thing. It can be done as a single person dance or as a couple dance. There's some Bernard's waltz, ladies and gentlemen. So grab your partners if you feel like it, and ladies on the inside, gentlemen on the outside, as usual. And you do 2 steps to the side, step, 2 steps back the way you came. Back. No, what'd you do?
3 steps
right,
to the side.
yeah. 3 steps to the side. 1, 2, 3.
Stamp, stamp.
Stamp, stamp. Then 2 steps back the way. Back. 2 steps back towards the middle, behind the gentleman. Back. 2 steps out the way. Out. Turn the lady. And 1, 2, 3. That's how we do it. So, just do it freestyle any way you like. But, it's nice to have a stretch of the legs at this point,
Have a move around if you so feel like it.
There we go.
The intro.
Yeah.
Bravo! Bravo!
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Bonus dance.
Thanks, Jed and Jo. We appreciate it. Sounded great. Thanks for staying up late with us tonight and putting
All
the
good. We're having a good, great time.
staying up. We appreciate it. Just wanted to catch up on some people who commented in the chat. I want to make sure and share their comments. Sally said that everything was just beautiful. Becky was telling Lily that the poem was terrific, very atmospheric, which I agree. Daniel McDowell, also wonderful, he said, last in Scotland in December 2010 with his brother. That's great. And then, yeah, I think we're all caught up then. So glad you're all still with us. We're going to move into the second part of our performance. Actually, I missed one comment, which was, sorry, Popsy saying that the poetry reading was just lovely, Lily's poetry reading. So wanted to get that one in too. So now we're going to move into a song from Daniel Shearin, but we're going to bring Hugh back from Scotland to introduce that for us.
Hi, folks. The poetry was beautiful and beautifully read, and thank you. Now, I'll ne'er blame my partial fancy. Nothing could resist my Nancy. Nancy was Agnes McElhose. Now, Robert Burns had two years in Edinburgh. The doors of the great and the good were thrown open to him that he might enter to entertain the higher echelons of society. But the doors were also opened at the end of the evening to invite him to leave, because he could never be one of them. Agnes McElhose met him on one of those evenings and became infatuated with him and he with her. But it was platonic. It couldn't get to the physical because she was in a class above him. In addition, she was married. Her husband was in Jamaica. She eventually sailed out to Jamaica to meet her husband, but sailed straight back to Scotland, having found him in his mistress's arms. So a very sad Mrs. McElhose, or Clarinda, as Robert Burns called her, his Clarinda. Now, she was infatuated with him. Their last meeting was on the 6th of December, 1791. They never met again after that. Of course, Robert Burns died 5 years later. So that was 6th of December, 1791. On the 6th of December, 1831, Agnes McElhose wrote in her diary, "Parted this day with Burns, never to meet again. Oh, that we should meet in heaven." But she missed her chance. So Walter Scott said of this song, it had the essence of 1,000 love songs. "Ae fond kiss, and then we sever. Ae farewell, and then forever." So let's hear it being sung by Daniel.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Daniel Shearin. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, and I'd like to send this one out to my little boy Finley. He's just turned 5 weeks or something like that. A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell and then forever. Deep in heart from tears I'll pledge thee. Warring signs and groans, I'll wage thee. I'll ne'er blame my partial fancy. Nothing could resist my Nancy, but to see her was to love her. Love but her and love forever. Had we never loved so kindly, had we never loved so blindly, never met, no, never parted, we had ne'er been broken hearted. Fare thee well, my first and fairest. Fare thee well, thou best and dearest. Thine be like a joy and treasure, peace, enjoyment, love, and pleasure. A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell and then forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee. Warring signs and groans await thee.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It sounded great. Daniel's not only a proud papa, but he's also a Grammy-nominated engineer and member of River Wireless, who band is loved here in Asheville and all over the world. So we're thankful to have him with us here tonight. Thanks, Daniel. Jim chimed in on the chat that he loved the music, Daniel. Made him miss his own foster son. That's great. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so now we're going to move back to Tom.
Well, the combination of A Fond Kiss and the Bargo of Pigfields and being married to the evening has sort of left me lost for words. I had difficulty deciding which poem to recite now because I started one about Fairview on the 16th of December, and it's a totally useless poem, so I gave up yesterday. On the same day, I started a poem to celebrate the birth of Finn, who Daniel has just mentioned. So I'm going to recite that poem. Robert Burns would have called it an occasional poem. By that he meant poems that are written for special occasions, and this was a very, very, very special occasion. It's called It's So Easy, an occasional poem written on the birth of my grandson Finn on December the 14th, 2020. It's so easy to see it in a baby boy born in December. It's so easy to see the divine in the loveliness of the Carolina leaves, in the great blue heron flying so elegantly above the rushing waters, or in the thrown stone skipping endlessly across the pond. It's so easy to hear it in the skirl of the pipes, in the angelic voice of Emmylou, or in the chanting of Benedictine monks. It's so easy to feel the divine in the touch of a lover's hand, in the caress of a silken cocoon, or in the warm Atlantic waves. We constantly see it in our children, and sometimes in our siblings, or in our favorite friends, or in the struggles of the oppressed, and the heroism of health workers. Yet still, we leave ourselves off the list. So let's glimpse for a moment in a mirror those earnest eyes, or turn over those hard-working hands and look at the lines. Surely now we can sing in the shower with fullest voice and dance with joy, knowing that we too are holy.
Wow, nice, Tom.
Yeah, lovely.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Tom. That was great. And now we're going to move on to our last Fairview performer of the evening. We have other performers, but Janna is the last of the ones from Fairview that hasn't performed yet. So, Janna, welcome. Great to have you here, and take it away.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. This is a, I live in Fairview, and I came here about 11 years ago to be with my two grandchildren and my son and his lovely wife. So this song was inspired by a young woman that Burns met. She was 18, and 5 years later, in 1791, he wrote this, inspired by her story, he wrote this song. And Andrew McDowell was the son of a very wealthy family and sometimes a parliamentarian. And he and Peggy were very intimate and had a relationship. And then he abandoned her. The courts found that Andrew was indeed the child of the relationship, and he was ordered to pay £3,000 to Peggy Kennedy and provide for the child. Yes, sir. That was in, a long time ago. And so this is our humanitarian Burns wrote this lovely song for Peggy. He also wrote another one about Peggy, Peggy Young Blooms. Ye banks and braes of bonny Doon, how can you be so blush and fair? How can you chant, you little birds? And I say weary and full of care. You break my heart, you warbling birds that wanton through the flowering foam. Ye mind me, oh, departed joys, departed never to return. Of day I rode by bonny Doon to see the rose and woodbine twine, and ilka bird sang oh its love, and fondly say, did I, oh mine. With lightsome heart I put a rose, the sweetest rose from the tree. but my false lover, he saw the rose, and lo, he left the thorn with me. He banks and prays, oh bonny Doon, how can ye bloom say fresh and fair? How can ye charm ye little birds? And I say weary, full of care, you'll break my heart, you warbling birds that wanton through the flowering foam. Ye mind me, oh, departed joy, departed never to return. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Nice, Janna.
Thank you so much, Janna. That was beautiful.
Thank
We,
you.
love having you with us here tonight and living with us here in Fairview too.
I
Great
love being
addition
here.
to our area. And your daughter Mary said that was a beautiful job. So
She
Yeah.
better have.
she knows the truth.
Yeah.
Thanks, Janna. We're going to bring Hugh back on just briefly. And before he gets started with his announcement, I just want to say we missed the chance to introduce him earlier. So Hugh is the chairman of the Friends of the Robert Burns Birthplace Museum, which is in Alloway, Scotland. So we wanted to make sure people knew who he was. So go ahead, Hugh.
Hi, folks. First of all, can I praise that last song? Sung with such feeling, and introduction was dead accurate. Yes, I chair the Friends of Robert Burns Birthplace Museum, and I'm also a volunteer guide at the museum and the cottage. Both posts are voluntary. We don't earn any money. But the Friends' task is to raise money which we then give to the National Trust for Scotland, but on the condition that the money must be spent on Robert Burns related projects in Alloway. So we are the route. If anyone's giving money to National Trust for Scotland, if you want it spent on Robert Burns, you must give it through us, because they're forced to spend it on Robert Burns. Now, the first ever known Burns supper was held in 1801 in the cottage, when 9 gentlemen met to commemorate Robert Burns. They actually met on the 5th anniversary of his death, but the following year they decided we must celebrate his birth, so it moved to the 25th of January. The supper ran there until 1809, after which it moved to a hotel in Ayr so that more people could attend. In 2016, after 3 years pleading with the National Trust, they agreed to bring the Burns supper back to Burns Cottage on his birthday. But the condition was that I had to run it, which was music to my ears. So we had 5 very successful suppers. We always have a direct descendant or a descendant very close to Robert Burns speaking at our suppers. So we hit the buffers this year, year number 6. We couldn't meet in the cottage for a burn supper, as was the norm. So we decided to have a virtual burn supper. We are live streaming this supper on the 25th of January at 7 p.m. or 2 p.m. your time. But our streaming will be there for 72 hours. So you would be able to watch it in North Carolina whenever you wished. We are charging, well, it's $46. We have, up to now, we have raised £75,000, which we've paid to support Burns Cottage renovation, Burns Monument renovation, and other projects. And the monies we collect for this, from this supper, will go to improving the exhibitions in the museum, where we have the largest collection in the world. We have over 5,500 artifacts, mainly manuscripts relating to Robert Burns. So we are trying our best to keep Robert Burns to the fore. And if you are ever able to visit Alloway, see the cottage, see the museum, and see the River Doon run nearby, just by the side of the old Kirk Alloway, where Robert Burns's tam o'shanter witnessed the ghosts and witches. So I'll get the link for our supper to Tom, and you'd be very welcome. And virtual Burns supper, you will virtually be inside Burns Cottage. At the end of the supper, there will be a chance to chat to the performers. And I hope you see me. And I hope that someday I see you at Burns Cottage, where I would roll out the red carpet. Thanks.
Thank you, Hugh. If you go into the chat, all the participants, you'll see we put a link into the Friends of Robert Burns Birthplace Museum website. If you click on that, you'll find where you can sign up for the event. We will also include the link to that event in an email we send out following this event, where we will share the recording and some other information with you too. So we'll give it to you in a couple of ways. And we are going to stay in Scotland and go back to Jed and Jo.
Hello, and we are going to play a song that is my favourite. Is it your favourite Burns song?
Well, it's hard to have a favourite. I'm glad you've got one.
I do. This is my favourite Burns song because it's an environmental song. It's an educational song about the flora and fauna of Scotland, and it is also kind of a protest song, and it's a love song, all rolled into one, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's called Westlin Winds. You'll have to ask Hugh for any more detail on that. We are merely ignorant musicians. We're not academics about Burns, but we'll give you this tune. Here we go. 1, 2. The Westlin winds and slaughtering guns bring autumn's pleasant weather. The woodcock springs on whirring wings among the blooming heather. Now waving grain wild o'er the plain delights the weary farmer. The moon shines bright as I rove at night to muse upon my charmer. The partridge loves the fruitful fells, the plover loves the mountain. The woodcock haunts the lowly dells, the soaring heron, the fountain. Through lofty groves the cushat roves, the path of man to shun it. The hazel bush, oh, hangs the thrush, the spreading thorn, the linnet. Thus every kind their pleasure find, the savage and the tender. Some social join and leagues combine, some solitary wander. Avant away the cruel sway, tyrannic man's dominion. The sportsman's joy, the murdering cry, the fluttering gory pinion. But Peggy dear, the evening's clear, thick flies the skimming swallow. The sky is blue, the fields in view, all fading green and yellow. Come, let us stray our gladsome way and view the charms of nature. The rustling corn, the fruited thorn, and every happy creature. We'll gently walk and sweetly talk till the silent moon shines clearly. I'll grasp thy waist and fondly praised swear how I love thee dearly. Not vernal showers for budding flowers, not autumn to the farmer, so dear can be as thou to me, my fair, my lovely charmer. Not vernal showers to budding flowers, not autumn to the farmer, so dear can be as thou to me, my fair, my lovely charmer. Thank you.
We liked it.
Spectacular.
That was that was lovely, lovely.
Great. Thanks, Jed and Jo. Daniel put
Could I just add
a
something?
nice evening, and I agree. It's been nice spending this night with you.
Yeah.
With you in Scotland too. So, all right. So we are going to go back to
Clark, I think Hugh was going to add something there.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hugh.
Well, the girl was Peggy Thompson. Robert Burns was 16 years of age when he wrote that song. Burns's education was from age 6 to age 9. That was his formal education. He had to work from 9 years of age. But his father sent him to a noted school for 10 weeks in the summer of 1785 when he was 16. And he said of Peggy Thompson, a young fillette who lived next door to the school, set my trigonometry off at a tangent from the sphere of my studies. He was infatuated with Peggy Thompson, but to have written that at 16 years of age is quite something.
Thank you, Hugh. It's always great to get the extra perspective on that, so we appreciate you contributing. Okay, so I think we're now going to go back to Tom for one last poem from him.
Well, I was 60 years older than 16 when I wrote this poem that I'm going to recite now. Excuse me. It was really inspired by 4 very different things. One was hearing Jed and Jo singing Westlin Winds to my niece in England. I heard it over WhatsApp, and it was so beautiful. And again tonight, inspiring. The second thing that inspired me about this poem was a British Prime Minister, the memory of a British Prime Minister called Harold Macmillan, who, when African independence was looming and all these countries wanted to be free of British tyranny, he made a radio speech, and in that speech he said, "The winds of change are blowing over Africa." And a few years later, almost every African country had become independent. He was a far-sighted guy. The third inspiration was my geography teacher, who was an insomniac monk, but he was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And one of the things he taught me was the names of many, many different winds. And then the fourth thing is that we have all been going through tremendous changes. If I just think since August, when we did our first Inspired by Burns evening, the changes we have all been through since then. So those all 4 things all came together in this poem. What I would like it to be, if it's possible, is to be like a poem that grows, and that each of you, as you hear it, begins to write your own verse that could be added on to the end of the poem. So this poem is called Winds of Change. With every waft of the Westlin wind, and with each whirling dust devil, our entire world changes. With each horrendous hurricane, every tumultuous typhoon, each greeting of the golden dawn, and with every new galaxy discovered, our entire world changes. With every dust-laden simoon, each manifestation of the solar wind, every seed sown, each dog disciplined, every furious fist raised in defiance, and with each ferocious fusillade fired, our entire world changes. With every fearsome fawn down the Rhone, each body bought back in a bag, every blink of an eye, each entrepreneur's innovative idea, every pea picked from its pod, each beat of a drum, every skirl of the pipes, our entire world changes. With every blood-bearing sirocco, each vote recorded and tally, every whispered threat, each bellowed command, every ferocious growl, each couple reconciled, every step into the unknown, each flash of a firefly, every fleck of foam on the ocean, and with each stone skimming across the water, our entire world changes. With each health-giving harmattan, every statue toppled, every promise made, every vow broken, each happy giggle, every shift in perspective, each moment of madness, every sigh of sadness, each squirm of guilt, every pang of remorse, each wail of a widow, and with every disappearing drop of dew, our entire world changes. With every past she knew, each egg that is laid, every rasher of bacon cooked, each rattle of cutlery, every plate laid on the table, every contribution to the morning chores, every cup of coffee consumed, each pluck of a string, every tousled tress, each dive into cool waters, every gleam in her eye, each sway of her hips, every walk in the woods, and with each lover forsaken, our entire world changes. With each fire-spewing Santa Ana, each unnecessary urging of the ego, every slightest slither of hope, and each ounce of forgiveness, our entire world changes. With each inkling of a breeze, and with every intake of breath, our entire world changes. And yet, throughout all these changes, the constant one remains steady, essential, and unchanging. Outside of us, yet within us. Far from us, yet nearby. Above us, yet in the depths. The nothingness that is everything. The darkness that is light. The transparency that is opaque. In front of us, yet bashfully loitering behind, watching, laughing, and sometimes grieving, and gracefully strewing serendipities and synchronicities along our paths as we strive to make our way in the world. For without this constant one, there can be no change, and thus no life, and thus no us. So let us pick up our instruments and our feet. Let us play our music and sing our songs and dance in endless praise of that constant one that has so many different names, and yet is our own common, singular, and eternal beloved, our bullock and our rock, in whose ocean of love we eternally swim.
Thank you, Tom. As great as always. Appreciate it. We've just about reached the end of our performance tonight. We wanted to thank everyone in the audience for spending your night with us. It's been very fun. We want to thank all of our performers, Andrew, Hugh, David, Tom, Bobbie, Lily, Jed and Jo, Daniel, and Janna. Thank you for giving your time tonight and your talents. If you'll look in the chat, we've put the contact information for all the folks who were here tonight, so you could follow them on social media or give them an email if you'd like to pass along some good wishes. As we mentioned at the top, we're recording this and we're going to post it to the YouTube channel for the Town Crier. We'll send out the link to that video as well as all this information in the chat, all the contact information for the performers too. So don't feel like you have to write all this down right now. We'll get it back to you. Is that it? Yes. So as is customary at Burns suppers and other Burns events, we're going to end our night with Auld Lang Syne performed by Daniel. So thank you all for being here tonight. Stay safe and good night.
Should all acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should all acquaintance be forgot and days of Auld Lang Syne? For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne. And surely you'll be your pie stock, and surely I'll be mine. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne.
perfect way to end it. Thanks, Daniel. All right, folks, I think Andrew's going to play us off, but thank you again for spending your time with us tonight. Everybody be safe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.